All right, high rollers, UFC 213 is in the books, and there's lots to chat about over at Bellator, too. We've got Nunes versus Shevchenko, the fight that never was, Romero v. Whittaker for the interim middleweight title, and so much more. And how about that Justin Gaethje-Michael Johnson fight on Friday night? Wow. Michael Mahar, our UFC analyst, joins us now. He's at Michael Marbled on Twitter. Michael, welcome back to the show, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me once again. It's a pleasure to be here.
First off, right out of the gate, disappointment. I purchased the pay-per-view only to learn that Amanda Nunes has pulled out with illness. What's going on with that?
Yeah, that was super surprising. I remember keeping in the dark for the most part on Friday night about the fights because I watched them Saturday afternoon. Then I saw that Nunes was out and I was shocked. I was like, wait a second, didn't they already weigh in? I thought it was locked. But yeah, apparently she's been struggling with sinusitis and didn't feel that she was fit to fight. Apparently it had gotten cleared by the UFC doctors, but according to her, that was in regards to dehydration and overall it didn't really check, her sinuses.
Well, I gotta figure there's something going on there because why would Dana White come out all over the media saying that yes, she was cleared by the doctors, she was cleared to fight, but that she didn't want to fight? And he also made the statement that she will never again be the main card on a pay-per-view. I mean, what do you think about that?
Can't help but think, but just a few months ago, literally months ago, when he said the exact same thing about John Jones, and what's happening at the end of the month?
UFC 214, baby.
Yeah, that's, and don't get me wrong, I'm looking forward to it. Look, Dana's always been emotionally reactive responder here and there, and when big things happen that really throw a wrench into their gears, it's not uncommon for him to throw a fighter under the bus pretty bad. And look, that doesn't help anybody. I mean, she's still your champion. She's still going to end up fighting for you in the future, whether it be the headliner of a pay-per-view or a co-main event or a televised or fight pass card, whatever. She's still going to make you money. There's no benefit to tearing her down. He's just pissed.
It's funny you mentioned that because that's exactly what he did. He threw her under the bus. He leaves the impression that she was okay to fight, but maybe upstairs in her head, she didn't want to face off against Valentina.
Maybe, but I really doubt it. I mean, they've already fought. She's already beat her. It's not like these fighters aren't taking far worse beatings in training at times. Like, they're not afraid to fight somebody. That's just silly. Like, she flies her mom into the country for the first time ever to have her not fight.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't make sense, but when Dana says stuff like that, it leaves the fan wondering, and it left me wondering, but it all makes sense. I mean, hey, she went in there against the big bad Ronda and knocked her out. She's not afraid to fight. We hope to see that fight down the road. We almost saw Joanna Jędrzejczyk step in, but I guess the pregnancy test takes 72 hours to clear or something?
I don't know about that. I would expect that the larger obstacles for that fight happening, have to do with the large discrepancy between the weight that Joanna's been fighting at, the weight that was scheduled to be fought for today, and she's not even licensed in Nevada at the time. It's just not possible to scramble that much. Maybe if it was like, a week ago or something like that, they might have been able to have something come together. But yeah, apparently those two have history dating back to, I believe, Muay Thai competitions, so I would love to see it.
Yeah, maybe we'll see that down the road somewhere. That would be an interesting fight to see both these fighters at the top of their game. Okay, so Yoel Romero and Robert Whittaker take the main event on this pay-per-view. Still a pretty good card. This was a great matchup. You've got the Soldier of God, a freak physical specimen, and Whittaker, who's been shocking everybody except himself of late on this run to the title of his. What did you think about this fight? I mean, obviously Romero had the first two rounds in the bag, but he got tired.
Yeah, he definitely wore out, and you're gonna have a pretty big expense when you've got a frame like that moving around. Like, that guy is the freak of all freaks. But Whittaker looked fantastic. It seemed like he might have taken a injury to his lead leg fairly early into the fight, but, seemed to hide it fairly well and adjust his game accordingly, put on a great performance again.
Yeah, he was on a hobbled left lead leg, and he seemed to fight through it. I'm wondering, do you watch the corners of these fights? Because on one side with Romero, his corner was flipping out. They were excited. They were yelling at him. And on the other side of the octagon, you got Whittaker's corner, nice and calm and relaxed, giving him great advice. I mean, they seem to do a great job in this fight.
Yeah, Whittaker's coaching has been great from what I've seen in all of his recent fights. When I watch the pay-per-views, I definitely try and follow what's going on in the corners, in the breaks between rounds, but I'm not so industrious as to click into the options and pause the event, watch it on the Fight Pass service, watch this corner between rounds here, switch mics, because you can do that in some of their broadcasts, and then make sure that I'm getting everything from both. Most of the time, I'm just watching the broadcast, and then they'll show some of this corner, or maybe this corner this time, and then the other corner next time. So it's not nearly as comprehensive, but yeah, it definitely seems like overall we're able to discern less information that might be given in the coaching because of the language barrier.
Right. So
Yeah.
Whittaker wins this fight. He wins it 3-2, wins the last 3 rounds, and now it sets up a fight between him and Michael Bisping. So Dana White has said the George St. Pierre fight is definitely off. What do you think about this Bisping-Whittaker fight? You got an early prediction on that one?
Fireworks. I cannot wait for... Honestly, I want to see any Whittaker fight. I want to see any Bisping fight. I think it's just amazing we get to see that at the highest level of the sport right now. I won't rule Bisping out by any stretch. Look what he's been able to accomplish with, very slim opportunities. He's done great things lately, but I'd have to favor Whittaker just because he's been so successful with what he's been doing. He's been improving a lot, and, we're talking almost a 15-year. Well, it's over a 10-year age gap with Bisping. I don't know if Bisping's 40 yet, but it's creeping on 15 years. And Bisping's super weathered too. So
yeah, well, one thing I've learned is we can never count Michael Bisping out. But you're right, where Robert Whittaker seems to be on this invincible roll right now. He's just beating everybody. All the big names, he's just mowing them down. Okay, a couple of other fights to quickly talk about before we talk about Friday night's fireworks between Gaethje and Michael Johnson. You've got Overeem, who beats Verdum on a judge's scorecard, and then Dana White comes out and says it was such a bad fight, Overeem's not getting a title shot in the heavyweight division. What did you think of that fight? And then what did you think about the war between Anthony Pettis and Jim Miller? 3 rounds, tough fight, and Showtime really looked good.
I can see the frustration that people have watching either this or, as I recall feeling watching the previous Overeem-Verdum fight. While the fight's happening, it's not that it's dull. It looks like it could go crazy at any moment, or something shocking could happen and you might miss the most key part of the fight. But overall, they're so good at their own game, and at this point in their careers, they understand that they're just better off adhering to their own game plan and not falling into someone else's game. So you got two guys with contrasting styles, and they have a lot of respect for each other, but they want to impose their own game. Doesn't exactly turn out to be the most active fight, so in reflection, people are not that thrilled with it.
It's one of those things where you've got these two guys and they've both got weapons, right? And they're both leery of the other guy's weapons, so it's a chess match because in an instant, the fight can change.
Yeah, for sure. The whole time I thought that was going to happen. A friend of mine actually stepped up between the second and third round to use the washroom, comes back partway through the third, and I told him, you basically missed the most significant part of the fight. There was very little action in the first round. I don't hate it being scored either way, but Verdum was slightly more active, then Overeem gets a better second round, but then I think the damage that was done in the third round by Verdum was easily the most significant connections of the fight at that point. So, like, I don't think draw is a bad ruling. I don't think a slight decision in either way is a bad ruling. But White's sentiment of it wasn't an exciting fight, it wasn't a conclusive decision, that rings true with, do people want to see the winner of this fight fighting for the title immediately?
Right. Right. Well, hey, one guy you like to always watch is Jim Miller. He always puts in a good performance, and it was a very tough fight against Anthony Pettis. Pettis just too skillful in this fight, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I actually had that written down. Like, Jim Miller is a must-watch fighter, period. And he's so active. Like, I think this was his 5th fight since last summer. Super, super talented, super skilled fighter, extremely experienced. But like the case has been for much of his career, whenever he fights the guys at the absolute top of the division or wherever his ceiling is presently, he comes up short, but he makes it a hell of a fight on the way. The guy's been in the trenches since before, at the top end of the division since before Anthony Pettis came into the UFC even, and he's still as tough.
Well, hey, speaking of tough, how about that Friday night tilt between Justin and Michael, Gaethje and Johnson? Man, that was a toe-to-toe tilt. Those guys put it all on the line, and credit to both guys in this fight. But man, was a star born or what? This Justin Gaethje kid, he's unbelievable.
This fight was incredible. Like, it just, at times, it was just pure madness. They're just going toe-to-toe, taking what the other guys got and just giving some more, and everyone knows Gaethje's plan coming in: low kicks, bull guard, and just relentless. And Michael Johnson couldn't knock him out. Oh well.
Well, I'll tell you, Justin Gaethje at one point in the first round was out on his feet, but you talk about heart. And they were both so tired, and they were just swinging for the fences. And that's what you like to see. When you fight like that in the UFC, you're always going to have a job.
I mean, you will until you can't do the job. But, I mean, he's openly said he's not concerned with the longevity of his career. He's not concerned with brain damage. He's going to go in there. He's going to bring the fight to people. And, if they're able to connect with him, good for them. Let's see what they got.
Well, what I love about the guy is he's already 17 amateur fights, debut in the UFC, unreal, and now he's calling out El Kukui, Tony Ferguson. He wants Conor McGregor. I mean, he's thinking big, and let's hope he can continue. If he fights like that, it's going to be a fun ride. All right, speaking of a fun ride, how about Bellator of late? These guys are on a roll, and the more and more I watch this MMA news, the more and more I see UFC fighters jumping ship and going over to Bellator. They just had a great pay-per-view with Chael Sonnen versus Wanderlei Silva. I mean, Fedor was on that card in a spectacular, a double knockout almost between him and Matt Mitrione. Bellator seems to be running pretty good these days.
Absolutely. Bellator has been making great strides and starting to make some significant waves for sure. They've been picking up a lot of fighters lately. Roy Nelson, a lot of people might not know, has jumped over. I believe he has a fight coming up, although I can't say I know who his opponent is. But yeah, Gegard Mousasi just signed with them now. That's a giant pickup for them. And yeah, the pay-per-view overall I thought was super entertaining. A lot of great fights on it. We got to finally see Silva and Sonnen kind of end their long overdue feud.
And then, of course, Matt Mitrione and that knockout of Fedor, that was unbelievable. I mean, they both landed at the same time.
Yep, there was definitely a trading shot for shot. Both go down, and Mitrione definitely recovered faster and was able to capitalize.
Are we going to see more of the Gegard Mousasis of the world jumping ship? Because, I mean, this is a big signing for Bellator. Gegard Mousasi, a guy who could fight for the title today, a guy who is very upset with the UFC. Some of the things that went on in his career really felt slighted. That's a giant pickup, isn't it, for Bellator?
Absolutely. I mean, it might not necessarily be as big as a Rory McDonald, but it's it's right up there. He's a massive pickup for Bellator. He's worked with Scott Coker before, and especially in the last couple of years where Mousasi's really started to open up and talk a little bit more openly. And the UFC never figured out how to market Mousasi to a broader audience, but there's definitely room for opportunity there. It's just, maybe the UFC doesn't know how to cater to all promotional styles, but you've got a super high level competitor that can work in the European market really well, the Japanese market as well. He's got tons of fights in Japan. It's a super big.
Yeah, some exciting times at Bellator. Makes it great for an MMA fan because now you're getting some quality, hyped up cards on Bellator. So it's great. It's a great time to be a UFC fan, a Bellator fan, an MMA fan. At Michael Marbled on Twitter, Michael Maher, our UFC analyst. Thank you so much, man. Thanks for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks again for having me.